Pardon? What? What's the bike got to do? What's the tire got to do with sea and serpents and? Okay, I'll change it. You what? That's the Irish countryside in the Wicklow Mountains. That's an yeah. What? A subscriber said he was going to unsubscribe if I continue to use AI images. Right. Okay. Just take a picture of that. From new to first service, what are my overall impressions of the bike now I put a few miles on the thing? Yeah, it was a bit flat, wasn't it? Yeah, well, you kind of took the wind out of my sails. From new to first service, what are my impressions of the Daytona 660? Now it's covered 1,200 kilometers and I've had my first service, my quick shifter's fitted. What do I think? Have I changed my mind? Yeah, I'll go with that. It's changed somewhat, I will say. On the handling front, I've got to grips with that. It's much better than I initially thought. And what else? Well, yeah, actually the rear brake has come into itself. I thought it was quite weak to start with. The pads are bedded in and they've changed quite a lot. The fronts were always brilliant. Some bikes are really sensitive to their geometry. And when I've been mucking around with the rear shock on this, on the preload.
You know you don't fucking do that. Oh. Nobody fucking does that. Oh. The fuck is wrong with you?
Trump's recommendation is to leave it in position 1 of 6, minimum preload. For all occasions, unless you're going 2 up or carrying a lot of heavy stuff. But I found it benefited from adding some preload. But I went too far and added too much preload.
No way!
Fucking hell, that's ridiculous.
You pervert.
Ridiculous, yeah.
So from being in position 0 on preload, I really didn't like the handling. It wasn't terrible, but you know, you just felt there was something going on there. You felt you were having to think about the bends too much. Once you got up to higher speeds or medium to high speeds. And then I went over the top a little bit and made it, I don't know, you could go around the same bend and it handled differently each time you went around it. I know that sounds weird, but that's the way it felt to me. So I found the sweet spot in the preload for my weight. So being an over average weight, it has been mentioned before, yes. I'm 18.5 stone clobbered up. I went to +3 on the preload. So the 6 position preload on this, I went to position 3. The handling is perfect. Go to position 4, go to position 2. The handling is bloody a bit weird, I will say. I didn't like it. Position 4, unreliable. As I say, it was kind of you never knew what sort of input you had to put in to get around that bend. And position 3, which is it's a couple of millimeters on that rear preload. It makes a huge difference. It changes the geometry of that bike. This has a very short trail, quite unusual actually when you look at all the other sports bikes and stuff like that out there. So I'm thinking this is really sensitive to its own geometry. Some bikes are and some bikes aren't. My CB1100 over there, that has adjustable front preload. Once you've set the rear preload, that front adjustable preload is to adjust the attitude of the bike to get the handling just right in a stock position. You know, I think it handles a bit poorly for someone my weight. But Honda give you the option of changing that front geometry, changing the bike's geometry, handling perfect. I changed the tyres on that bike, and they're a slightly different profile. And the bike then was turning in far too quickly. So I added the preload back on the front, brought the front end up again, and brought it to a nice neutral stance. That's something you can't do on this, and a lot of these other bikes, there's no preload adjustment in the front. So I'm fine-tuning the handling of this bike by adding or subtracting, whichever way it may be for you, preload. Well, in this instance, preload is set at 0. So you can't take any more away. You can sharpen the bike up a bit. And if you are heavier than normal, I would say try +1, try +2 over the stock. So position 2 or position 3. Me at 18.5 stone, position 3 was perfect. Either side of that, the bike didn't like it. So I think this bike is sensitive to its geometry. So I love the handling on this now. It's predictable, it's clean. It's not pin sharp racer or anything like that, but it's predictable, clean, no effort. And I'm glad I mucked around with the rear preload to get the perfect handling for me on this bike. Love it now. I absolutely love it now. So I have no complaints about the handling anymore, whereas before I was a little bit reserved on it. So that's that. While this bike was in for its service, I had a Trident 660, and all I can say is this isn't a Trident 660 in a frock. It's a completely different bike. The engine feels like it's in another league. The Trident 660 is a lovely country bike, commuter, that sort of thing, and it pulls fantastically. The triple engine pulls fantastically in it with its 80 horsepower, I think it is, and it feels brilliant. What this bike does, it still has that massive low and mid range, but it just goes on and on and on up the rev range, up to its 95 horsepower. All the power's not at the top end of this bike, it's all the way through this bike. This thing pulls like a bloody train. Sometimes you're almost convinced you're on a 1000cc bike. I know that sounds weird. It feels like you are, not physically in size, but the engine delivery and power delivery feels like you're on a much bigger bike with this engine. It pulls like a train, but it keeps pulling like a train right the way up through the rev range. Quite different from the Trident engine. So let's get out on the road and have a chat about this bike and what I truly think about it now it's got a few miles up on it. So we're running and we have the quick shifter fitted. Has my opinion of this bike changed? Yep, it has. As I mentioned there in the intro, I have it handling brilliantly now. I'm perfectly happy with that. And I'm out in the Wicklow Mountains now, of which there's quite a lot of crappy roads in the Wicklow Mountains. And this suspension copes with it wonderfully. For something that's totally non-adjustable in terms of damping, it soaks up the bumps and it keeps control of the bike. The high-speed damping is great. The low-speed damping is excellent. Now, because I'm a heavy rider, I'm always going to tax that fixed damping a bit more than an average weight person, and so it's always going to feel more plush to somebody like me. But the only thing I can say in comparison, it's definitely more plush than the Trident. So even though this is the sports bike, it's a nicer ride than the Trident. I'm not saying the Trident ride's terrible, just saying this is better. My mucking around with that rear preload.
Fucking hell, that's ridiculous.
I've changed the geometry of the bike, and I now have this bike handling lovely. So now I'm happy with the chassis again. I wasn't upset, but I was surprised. I didn't think it was handling as well as it could with Triumph's reputation. Now I'm perfectly happy with the handling. So I've talked about the suspension, I've talked about the handling, talked about the comfort. Yeah, love the comfort seat, love the normal seat, love everything, below the kind of shoulders downwards really. The bike's a little bit wristy, that's all. That's my age, that's just my age. It's not going to be wristy for the sort of people buying this bike. It's not an extreme position. Having said that, every time I ride it, I'm training my wrists. I'm training my wrists and my neck. This bike, I'm in rain mode at the moment. It's of course it's typical. The sun was shining when this was out the front on the driveway as I was about to ride away. I ride away, and like 30 seconds later, I don't know, every grey cloud on the planet sits above Kildare in Ireland, and it starts raining. Every time I come out on bloody drive, it starts raining. I've never had a bike brand that uses rain mode so much. Brakes. Most improved item in the running period. Rear brake. Rear brake. It just must be the pad material. Bedding in and everything like that. But the rear brake is quite a lot different than it was in the early days. So I know we don't need massive rear brakes and all that. There's no downward force on that bloody back wheel, so there's
there's no point in having a super duper rear brake, but there is a bit more feel to it and a bit more bite to it. The engine, I'm not going to say, well, the engine's loosened up over that running period, because I didn't find the engine tight in the first place, that or the gearbox. So I'm not going to say the engine's loosened up. What's happened is, though, is I treated this bike quite sympathetically with the running in period. So the first 1,000 kilometers I did treat the engine with a bit of a kid glove. So I changed the revs all the time and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't thrash this. Yeah, I'm thrashing it now. Oh my, well, not this second, but oh my god, this thing just pulls like a train. It just pulls like a train. It's incredible for a 660. There are no flat spots. It just pulls right up to the top of its rev range, where the Trident, and I've been riding them back to back while this was getting serviced. The Trident is that lovely strong low and mid range, and then it kind of runs out of a bit of a puff right at the top end there. This just goes on for a few thousand more revs and just keeps building power and using that whole 95 horsepower. And it's not difficult to use it or get to it. Look, I'm out here, not a particularly fast country road, but look, I'm in fifth, and it pulls itself in fifth. It does the same in sixth. And if you go down to third or fourth, you can go bonkers on this bike. I've said it before, you'd swear you're on an 800, 1000cc bike sometimes. The induction noise from those three throttle bodies is something else. It's a beautiful sound. The engine is the biggest revelation on this bike. It's just absolutely stunning. It's just stunning. And there's my lovely quick shifter. Oh, that's just so gorgeous going down the box. It's pretty good going up the box, but oh, it's brilliant going down the box. Oh, the sun's decided to come out. I've still got lots of rain on my visor. The roads are wet. Oh, of course, I just mentioned that and it's gone back in then. The roads are soaking wet, but very happy with these tyres. Oh look, I'm going to get bloody soaking on the top of the mountain, look. Go down a couple of gears and use the bike as it should. Oh. I just watched, well, yesterday it was, Bennett's Bike Social shootout between this Honda CBR, the Yamaha R1, what was the other bike? Oh yeah, the Suzuki 8R. You were kind of thinking, you know, the guys were coming out in favour of the Suzuki or this, you know, and they thought this was a bit of a hooligan bike, this. And then they all kind of, you know, went for their middle-aged man, I'll have a Honda, please. And look, I'm giving you the same thing. Look, I've got a GS. And I've got a Honda CB1100. You can't get a bigger pipe and slippers bike than a Honda CB1100 EX. But you know, when I bought this bike, it was, I'll be a long time in my grave. And occasionally you've got to say to yourself, I'm not going to make the sensible choice. Like, I'm not going to go round the world on this thing. And I'm lucky enough to be able to afford this bike. Not it's a super expensive bike. And this is definitely buying with your heart instead of your brain. I know what they're saying, if you're only ever going to have one bike, but really, are you going to be doing massive mileages on these bikes? You're not. And I can live with this bit of a risky position, you know, for a day out on this. You know, I would. I'd quite happily do a couple of 100 miles on this in a day. Would I go touring with my tent and all that? No, of course not. You could do it if you wanted to, if you really had to, but you're not gonna. No, you must test ride this bike, and if the dealer says, oh, I'm running it in, don't take it above 5,000 RPM, go to another dealer for a test drive. Not that there's no poke below 5,000 RPM or anything like that. It's just a pure addictive adrenaline rush you get bringing this thing right to the top of the revs. No holes in it, no flat spots, just turbine smooth, 120-degree crank, linear takeoff power. Oh, it's just stunning. And I believe with the Suzuki, which I'd say could have been my second choice, probably would have been my second choice, they've kept the same engine characteristics as the road bike. Which, I don't know. I'm not too sure. Why wouldn't you differentiate that a bit more? Well, these front brakes are amazing. I just get worried about some of the sheep getting a bit skitty here. And I don't want to be a statistic. Only thing that lets this bike down, that dash. Look, I could live with it. It's not like I'm riding around staring at the bloody thing. But they are out of kilter with everybody else with that dash. That's just the housing. That same dash appears in many guises on some of the other bikes, and it suits them. I don't think it particularly suits this bike. I would have paid an extra couple of hundred for just a kind of small TFT like the other bikes in this class have. Switch gear, I know it comes in for some criticism, but functionally I kind of like it. My only criticism would be the indicator's a bit kind of woolly, not a lot of tactile feedback, but that's very much the case with a lot of these bloody modern bikes, where it's no longer a mechanical lever, it's touching some carbon pad inside in the switchgear, you know. So I don't know, but again, I don't like to let things like that worry me too much, because in the overall scheme of things, that's a tiny element of what this bike is giving you. When you're using the quick shifter at low revs, it's actually quite nice. It's very smooth. So in town, when you're kind of gently accelerating, using the quick shifter up and down, or slow speed roads, not just town obviously, it's very pleasant. Look, absolutely imperceptible going down that gearbox. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, with the range that this engine's got, I could stay in fourth now for the next kind of 20 miles on roads like this, making my quick shifter redundant. Oh god, then I went into third. That was wonderful around that bend. So glad I got that suspension sorted. But there's a little sense of devilment about this bike, and you can get that devilment out of it without being a bloody asshole. So I did buy with my heart, not my head. This is a choppy road. I've been on this a lot of times. I'm standing up with the pegs. This isn't this bike's natural habitat, but you know, it's doing fairly well for itself. Oh, yeah, right out the seat. It's accounting for itself very well. God, the weather really can't make its mind up. Now the sun's out again. It seems silly that this bike can go so well. And the great thing is, you can concentrate so much on holding on to those bars, changing up and down the gear shift, without kind of loosening your grip on the left hand. Not that I'm gripping on for dear life, but without kind of loosening the grip on the clutch. And I know with this quick shifter and the way Triumph implement them, I can downshift mid-corner if I need to. I think that's the versatility of these mid-price sports bikes now. The suspension is good enough that you can bloody do rubbish like this, but still have a lovely handling bike on a better quality road, of course. Even on this crappy road I can use this engine, because this suspension, especially the front, is coping with it. And unless the suspension on the front, I might feel a bit less enthusiastic about the way the bike's steering. But I feel perfectly happy pushing this a bit up here. I'm in third. Look, I'm not going crazy, I'm only doing about 60 mile an hour, but on a road like this, that's quite a lot. The implementation of the ABS on this is brilliant. Look, these roads are pretty dry, but a bit damp. What? Hey, what? Okay, they're kind of dryish and they have some dampishness on them. Okay, that clarifies it exactly. But look, wow, this ABS is brilliant. Now, I got the rear end squirreling around a bit there. I think I took it by surprise. Yeah, the front end is definitely the master release braking system, as you'd expect. But the ABS is lovely. It's a lovely implementation of it. Felt the rear end hop slightly there. I'd be happy braking in an emergency on this. Yep. It gets a tiny bit out of control at the back end. Tiny bit. But nothing that would make you think that oh, what's going on here then? Well, am I about to lose this? Nothing like that. Maybe that's no big surprise. I've chucked all that weight on the front end. It's getting very light at the rear end. But I love the braking on this system. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm not ready to ride off into the sunset in a Royal Enfield just yet. Well, I haven't died yet. Hello. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it's the man from the Royal Enfield Owners Club of Ireland. Shit. Oh, fucking bastard. I'll never get over that fella. Yeah, I'm not ready for one of them yet. I still want to inject a bit of adrenaline in my life. Half an hour ago I stopped off at Lara for a cup of coffee at my favourite cafe, and a few GS's there, and an Italian GS pulled up next to me, and the wife got off the back and she looked at me and I could see it in her face. Oh, that's a lovely little bike you have there, young man. And it's like, yeah, but I'm absolutely stoked. I see people looking at me when I take my helmet off and you go, no, you're shitting me. You got on the wrong bike. Fuck me, here's a big tank. Oh, I know they're not tanks. They're armoured personnel carriers, aren't they? Yeah. We'll just, I just won't let them pass. Cool, isn't it? Cool job. Yeah, kind of cool. He looks roughy tufty, doesn't he? Yeah. There's a soldier having a sleep in the back of that car. I'll dock that from your wages. Wow, I'm amazed at how well the suspension is coping. Yeah, if you're not ready to die yet and you want a bit of excitement in your life, and a BMW S1000 XR is out of your price bracket, and buy one of these. Yeah, I mean, this thing does go like a rocket. If you want it to, it goes like a rocket. But you're getting that rocket-like feeling at a lower actual speed, really, at the end of the day, compared to something like an S1000. What you've got to remember about this is it's budget. There's nothing on it. There's no gadgets, nothing. And it's great for that. Well, it copes with this road fine. I just don't drive on that grassy bit in the middle. Or that big layer of gravel in the middle. Mind you, even that makes my GS a bit squirrely. Not too sure I want to test out the ABS in the middle of a gravel pile though. Of course, this bike does well on long sweeping roads like this as well. This engine doesn't scream at higher speeds either. You get this bike into 6 and this road's 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. And what's that doing? Yeah, somewhere about 5,500 revs, maybe a little bit less. So it's 70 mile an hour or plus on a bit of motorway. It's not a bother. What else isn't the best? Well, if I'm honest, the mirrors aren't the best. They look great, but you can only use half of them really. It's too much shoulder and arms in them. It's a well-mannered bike through town as well. There's no fueling problems on this. The relationship between the throttle and the engine is direct. There's that tiny little lag that's often talked about on the Trident. I'd say the 3 throttle bodies have something to do with that. You can do this all day on this bike, on these sort of roads. The fairing takes the pressure off your chest. It's not like you're riding it naked. Your head's still out the wind, of course. But that's okay, that actually works well in the rain. But what would be the point? There's no point, you're just wasting the bike on roads like this. So, it'll do it, but that's not what it's for. While I'm behind this lorry thinking of negatives, yeah, there's not too many to be honest. One other I could add, I suppose, is the gear shift's a bit woolly. It's like it's a rubber mounted gear shift. Not in a terrible way. So it's just a bit woolly. It's not horrendous. You know, this gear shift with the quick shifter is absolutely bloody brilliant. Case in point. So I'd have to say, bloody great, a Toyota Igo in the middle of me bend. I have to say, these negatives are kind of more like niggles. And none of them would put me off this magnificent engine and brake package, along with a quick shifter. None of them. But it's 100% thrill. I'll end it there. So tomorrow I'm going to finish off adjusting the preload on the Daytona. What do you think?
Will not survive, Captain. The ship can't handle it. The whole thing's going to explode.